Chapter 2. Gulliver Goes to Town. My mistress had a daughter, 9 years old, a child who showed promise, expert with her needle and skillful at dressing her doll. With her mother, she managed to fit up the doll's cradle for me to sleep in. The cradle was put in a small drawer of a cabinet, and the drawer was placed on a hanging shelf that was safe from the rats. This was my bed while I stayed with those people. It gradually became more comfortable as I learned their language and was able to make my wants known. This young girl made me 7 shirts and some other clothing of as fine a material as could be got, which indeed was coarser than sackcloth. These she washed for me with her hands. She also taught me the language. When I pointed to anything, she told me the name of it in her own tongue, so that in a few days I was able to call for whatever I had a mind to. She was good-natured and not above 40 feet high, being little for her age. She gave me the name Brobdingnag, which the family took up, and afterwards the whole kingdom did too. The word means the same as the English word mannequin. To her, I owe my survival in that country. We never parted while I was there. I called her Glumdalclitch, meaning little nurse. I would be ungrateful if I failed to mention her care and affection for me. I heartily wish it were in my power to repay her as she deserves, instead of being the cause of her disgrace, as I fear I am. It now began to be talked about in the neighborhood that my master had found a strange animal in the field, shaped exactly like a human creature, and also acting like one. It seemed to speak a little language, had already learned several words of theirs, walked on 2 legs, was tame and gentle, would come when it was called to do whatever it was asked. Another farmer, who lived close by and was a good friend of my master, visited on purpose to find out the truth of this story. I was brought out and placed on the table. I walked as I was commanded, drew my sword, and put it away again. I was respectful of my master's guest, asked him in his own language how he did, and told him he was welcome, just as my little nurse had instructed me. This man, who was old and had poor eyesight, put on his spectacles to see better. I could not help laughing very heartily. His eyes appeared like the full moon shining in a room through 2 windows. Our people, who discovered why I was laughing, joined in, and the old fellow became angry. He had the character of a miser, and to my misfortune, he deserved it. He advised my father to exhibit me on a market day in the next town. I guessed there was some mischief brewing when I saw my master and his friend whispering together and sometimes pointing at me. The next morning, Glumdalclitch told me the whole matter, which she had found out from her mother. The poor girl laid me on her bosom and began weeping from grief. She was afraid some mischief would happen to me from rude folks who might squeeze me to death or break one of my limbs by taking me in their hands. She had seen how modest I was, how careful I was of my honor, and imagined how disgraced I would feel to be exposed for money at a public spectacle. She said her papa and mama had promised Brobdingnag would be hers, but now she found they meant to treat her as they did last year when they pretended to give her a lamb, and yet, as soon as it was fat, they sold it to a butcher. For my part, I can truthfully say I was less concerned than my nurse. I had a strong hope, which never left me, that I would one day have my liberty again. As to the humiliation of being carried around for show, I considered myself a stranger in the country, and such bad luck could never be considered a disgrace if ever I returned to England, since the king himself, in my situation, must have undergone the same thing. My master carried me in a box the next market day to the nearby town, and took along his daughter, my nurse. The box was closed on every side, with a little door for me to go in and out, and a few small holes to let in air. The girl had put the quilt from her doll bed in it for me to lie down on. However, I was terribly shaken on this journey, even though it took only half an hour. The horse went about 40 feet in each step and trotted so high that the shaking was like the rising and falling of a ship in the storm. My master stopped at an inn, and after talking with the innkeeper and making some preparations, he hired a crier to give notice through the town that a strange creature, who looked like a human and could speak words and perform tricks, could be seen at the sign of the Green Eagle. I was placed on a table in the largest room of the inn, which was about 300 feet square. My little nurse stood on a low stool next to the table to take care of me and tell me what to do. My master would only let in 30 people at a time to see me. I walked around on the table as she commanded. She asked me questions she knew I could understand, and I answered as loud as I could. I made some other speeches I had been taught, and I took up a thimble filled with liquor that Glumdalclitch had given to me, and drank it to their health. I drew out my sword and waved it boldly. That day, I was shown to 12 sets of people and forced to go over the same foolishness each time until I was half dead. Those who had already seen me made such wonderful reports that people were ready to break down the doors to get in. My master would not allow anyone to touch me except my nurse. To prevent danger, benches were set around the table at a distance that put me out of everybody's reach. However, a schoolboy aimed a hazelnut at my head, which just missed. Otherwise, it would have knocked out my brains, since it was as large as a pumpkin. I had the satisfaction to see the young rogue beaten and thrown out of the room. My master gave public notice that he would show me again the next market day. In the meantime, he made a more comfortable vehicle for me, which he had good reason to do. I was so tired from my journey and from entertaining company, I could hardly stand on my legs or speak a word. It was at least 3 days before I recovered my strength, but I had almost no rest at home. Neighboring families from 100 miles around came to see me at my master's own house. My master, finding how profitable I was likely to be, decided to carry me to the largest cities in the kingdom. He took leave of his wife on the 17th of August, 1703, 2 months after I arrived, and we set out for the capital, which is in the middle of that empire, and about 3,000 miles from our house. Glumdalclitch carried me on her lap in a box tied to her waist. She had lined it on all sides with the softest cloth she could get, and made everything as comfortable as she could. A boy rode behind us with the luggage. My master's plan was to show me in all the towns on the way and to go off the main road for 50 or 100 miles to any village or manor where he might find customers. Glumdalclitch, in order to spare me, frequently complained that she was tired of the trotting horse. She often took me out of the box to give me air and show me the country, but she always held me within strings. We passed over 5 or 6 rivers, much broader, deeper than the Nile or the Ganges. Hardly a creek was so small at the Thames at London Bridge. We were 10 weeks on our journey, and I was shown in 18 large towns, besides many villages and private houses. On the 26th of October, we arrived in the capital, called Lorwelgrud, which means Pride of the Universe. My master took a lodging in the principal street of the city, near the royal palace, and put out posters describing me and my ability. He rented a large room, 400 feet wide. He put a table in it for me to perform on and fenced it around, 3 feet from the edge to prevent me from falling. I was shown 10 times a day to the wonder of all people. I could now speak the language fairly well and could understand any word spoken to me. Glumdalclitch had been my teacher while we were at home and during our journey.